afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Ms. Nestor.
I don't believe you and I have ever met, but I am Kathy, Kathy Nestor, and I'm one of Ms. Richins' attorneys. So it's nice to meet you. So I want to just kind of start with a basic observation, but just to make it crystal clear. You are not law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
And you've never been law enforcement in your whole life, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the rules and ethics and expected practices of private investigators are significantly different, would you agree with me, than those that apply to licensed law enforcement?
I don't know that I would agree with that in every circumstance. A private investigator, when he is hired by a lawyer, is bound to all the ethics that that lawyer is bound to.
Okay.
So,
But, for example, you don't have to go get a warrant to go look at a house.
well, right, that's the state action distinction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not a state actor.
Right.
I've never been a state actor.
Right.
I will never be a state actor.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to go search a house for 6 straight days and look at thousands of documents, you don't need to get a judge to give you permission to do that, right?
No, I got the permission of Kouri's lawyers who represented her to do that.
And you also got the permission of Clint Benson, right?
Yes.
And in fact, Clint gave you a key,
Yes.
and you had that key to use at your discretion.
Yes.
And there were times when you would go to the house and Clint was not there and you would let yourself in, right?
I believe that my testimony covered that, and that was that Clint was aware that I was there, and he was either on his way or there with me.
But you agree with me, and you have videos, I believe, that back this up, that there were occasions where you would go to the house, Clint was not there, you'd use your key, and you'd go in.
Yes.
And there were occasions where you would be spending hours and hours and hours in the office, because I've
Yes.
watched all the videos,
Yes.
and you would be there alone without Clint anywhere around you.
Yeah, I don't need supervision, counselor. I was
Perfect.
conducting an investigation, independent investigation, and he had given me the key, trusted me with that, and I was authorized to enter the premises at will.
Right. So if he got on the stand and said you were never doing anything outside his eye, that would be false.
Well, from his perspective, he had knowledge of my presence there, as I have testified every time I was there.
Fair.
So from his perspective, it may look different.
But you agree with me, sir, that there's hours and hours and hours of video of you alone in that office going through things.
I think that I've already testified to that.
Okay. Now, you were not permitted access to the house until after Kouri had been arrested, right?
No, that's not correct.
You got in the house before she was arrested?
No, that is not correct.
Okay, help me out.
The house was released by the Summit County Sheriffs on the 8th.
Of
That's
May.
what gave us, that was the trigger, not Kouri's arrest. It was the end of their search that triggered our access to the house.
Okay.
The police were executing a warrant.
Do you know when Kouri was arrested, sir?
I don't recall the exact date or time.
Would it surprise you to be the day before May 7th?
Okay.
All right. So,
Objection, Your Honor, foundation on that.
Was
Would
it
you
May 8th?
re-ask the question, Ms. Nestor?
It's May 8th.
sorry, would it surprise you if it was the same day, May 8th, that you got access to the house?
It would not surprise me since I do not recall.
Okay. And during the time after Eric's death, but before Kouri's arrest on May 8th, did you ever go inside the house for that entire year?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again?
Sure. During the time between when Eric Richins died on March the 4th,
Yep.
in the early morning hours
Yep.
of 2022,
Yep.
and May 8th of 2023, Were you ever inside the house at any point in between those times?
No, never.
Perfect. So the first time you ever got in that house, over a year had expired since Eric had passed.
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned the police had executed a search that day before they released it to you, right?
Yes.
And do you know how many times prior to that the police had searched that house?
No.
Okay. And then you've also testified here, I think very honestly, that on repeated occasions you notified the police, hey, there's something you missed. You might want to go back to the house and find it again.
I mean, I'm not going to adopt your characterization, but it is true that I called them back to that house when I discovered something that I thought was evidentiary.
How many
Important.
times?
Oh, I don't know, 4, 5.
So on at least 4 to 5 occasions,
Yeah.
you found things the police had missed.
Yeah, oh, that's been my experience throughout my career.
And you
The
told
police
them,
never
sorry.
get everything, ever.
Right. Well, I'm
It's
not going to
true
argue.
in every case I've ever handled.
Sure, not going to argue with you on that one.
Yeah, it's true.
So they come back because you call them and say, hey, I found something, come back, here's where it is.
Yep.
And they know you're doing that. They know that you have full access to this house, right?
I don't know what they know. I
They-
can't answer that.
Well, you're calling them every time you find something.
Well, what opinion they formed in their mind is not within my knowledge.
Okay, fair. True, you called them every time you found something.
That I thought was of evidentiary value in their investigation.
And did
True.
any of them ever say, you know what, we're good, stop calling us?
No, I don't recall that at all.
So then the converse of that is they encourage you to keep doing that.
Well, no. That is not the converse of your hypothetical,
Okay.
and I do not agree with your assessment.
Okay? Did you feel like you were helping them?
I was following the instructions of my client to turn over anything I thought was relevant to the criminal investigation. This is not my case. My case is in the civil court. Anything that we thought was of value to the criminal case, we turned it over.
And the police were happy with that.
I don't know if they were happy or sad or distraught. I have no idea as to their emotional condition.
They sure never told you to stop.
The police never directed me to do anything, and if they had told me to stop, I would have ignored them.
Okay. So you could go in without a Warrant, find something, call them, tell them to get a warrant, and they'd come get it.
I think that's an oversimplification and a vilification. I had permission to enter those premises. I had every right to be there. I didn't need a warrant. I'm not a state actor. I have the permission of the property owner. So I don't agree with your characterization.
When the cops would show up, did you point out what you were showing them? Were you usually there?
No, I was there on one occasion when the police showed up. They executed warrants when I was not there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I only remember one occasion where I found an audio recorder in a dresser drawer that they then recovered by warrant.
And you waited around and pointed it out to them?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I never touched the device. So, yeah, I would have. I don't know if I pointed it out. I think what I did was, on that date, when I saw the recorder and recognized it for what it was, which is not easy, I just immediately withdrew. I left my audio recorder going until the police arrived. I don't recall pointing it out. I recall describing to them where it was.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So then, there was one occasion where you found something that was a letter purportedly written by Eric called the My Princess letter. Do you remember that?
I remember a baby cakes letter. I don't know if I remember
That's it.
my princess. Is that the same
That's
one?
the one.
Yes.
You remember finding that letter?
August the 9th of 2024 is when I took a photograph of that, but I found it on May the 10th of 2023 during my search of the residence.
So, when you found this letter, at some point, did you move the location that you found it from?
I don't recall ever moving the location. On the video, you will see me find the letter on May the 10th of 2023 when I am in the bedroom, and it is located in the bottom drawer of Eric's side of the bed, the bottom drawer of the vanity. And I looked at it. I didn't think it was relevant. I put it back down on the drawer. On August the 9th of 2024, when I photographed it on the bed, I do not recall if that letter was on the bed or whether I went and retrieved it from the vanity. But there is video. The August 9th, 2024 was the episode that I described that I was called over and I didn't have a video recorder, so I was recording by audio, and this is the same date that I recovered the audio recorder, so the letter was also photographed, and then later, I think it was taken by the police, I don't know, but...
Let me stop you for just a minute.
Okay.
You left the letter on the master bed, correct? For the police to find.
I left the letter on the master bed. I didn't know that the police were going to come for it.
Okay. And they ultimately did, correct?
Well, ultimately, I don't know because I wasn't present, so that's beyond my knowledge.
Isn't it true that you moved other things around in that house often?
No, that is not true.
Did you move a computer that you located in the office?
I don't recall moving a computer in the office, but I did not move it out of the office.
Did you put it in your Tesla?
If you are talking about the C&E computer, I did not find it in the office. That is not how that worked.
Okay. So you found it where, sir?
I found it in possession of my client who had taken it, who had been given it or taken it from Becky Lloyd. So my understanding of the pathway of the C&E computer that I examined was that it was picked up by Becky, who lives nearby and works for C&E. The C&E computer, she then went to get business files off of it. I talked with her about this. I filed an extensive report regarding my interview about the computer. And then before I could get up to Francis to get that computer, I lived at the time 250 miles south of Francis in Washington County, so it takes me a while to get up to Francis. Before I could get up to get that computer, I believed that my client had already secured it, and so I went and got it from her.
So Becky got the computer from the house after Eric died,
Yep.
right?
Correct.
Then Becky gave it to Katie,
Correct.
and Katie gave it to you.
Correct.
And in all of that, no law enforcement ever put hands on it.
Correct.
And at some point, you took it back up to the office to go through it?
No.
Right. Well, there's video of you going through that computer in the office.
I suppose that I may not have remembered that I went through a computer in that office, but the C&E computer was processed at a location in Midway, and I recall that there was what I want to say is an obvious missing hard drive location. I could see the outlines of a hard drive that had been in place in that computer. I became suspicious that the hard drive had been removed prior to me getting to that computer. I later sourced that missing hard drive to an upgrade that was performed by a computer company at the request of C&E. The hard drive contents were transferred to a solid state drive, and I did locate that inside the computer.
Okay. So can we play for the witness only clip TG10?
We're going to play without sound, right?
Yes, sir. No sounds necessary.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of wait till we get to the computer part. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Can we bring that one down? That's the next one. We want to go to the one right before that, which is 173. It's GXO 10073. Do you have that one? Okay.
Excuse me, I'm having difficulty keeping my head up.
Oh, no worries. Whatever you need, sir, to be comfortable. Take a minute. Yep, I'll go back to that. It's going to take her a minute to upload that, Your Honor, so we'll get to that. You don't recall putting electronics documents in your Tesla and driving away from the house?
Oh, I remember that, yes.
Okay.
But that was not the C&E computer.
Okay, what computer was that?
I don't recall. I'd
So-
have to see the video.
So you
That's
were-
why I make them.
You removed a laptop from the office and put it in your Tesla and drove away with it?
I don't recall that, no. I do not. That would have been my, if there was a laptop in that office, it was mine.
Okay, well, we're going to pull it up in just a minute. I'll help
Fantastic.
refresh your memory.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned earlier that you didn't take, other than the vital records and the attorney-client privileged records, that you didn't take anything else out of the home. That's not entirely true. You also took a safe out of the house?
Yeah, I described that by report, but that house, that safe was returned.
Okay, so you went into the house with your own key, correct?
Yes,
You went into the family, I believe is in the master closet, is that right? Where was it?
yes.
You picked it up, took it out of the house, and put it in your Tesla.
Yes, I believe I did that at the request of Clint Benson.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then you drove it to a locksmith,
I did.
and you busted into the safe.
I did not bust into the safe.
Well, he did.
He bumped. He used a technique called bumping. It's the movement of the door and the frame of the safe that allows it to come open.
Okay, but you didn't have a combination.
I don't know if that was a combination. I thought there was a key to that one.
It was forced open with a hammer, right?
I think it was a rubber mallet, and it was dropped onto the ground.
Okay.
I think that's what eventually got it opened, was that it was dropped onto a flat surface.
And when you were doing that, there's no law enforcement there, correct?
I don't need law enforcement to babysit me.
Okay. And you open it up, and there's clips from guns in there, right?
I would have to go back to my report to recall exactly what was in there.
But you handled it with your bare hands, no gloves.
I did.
All right. And, I'm sorry. You also found an unusual residue in the safe. Do you recall that? That you touched with your fingers?
I don't recall that.
All right. We'll play that in a second.
Fantastic.
I do think we found the video of the laptop, so can we queue up for the witness only GXO 10073?
Yeah, that's my laptop. I am scanning into my laptop the documents that I am going through at the office. That is my laptop.
The black one?
Yes.
Okay. So you're scanning all the documents you're finding in the office and then loading them into your laptop.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And again, Clint Benson was not present when you were doing any of this.
Yes, that is my testimony on direct.
Okay. Now let's go to the one of the safe. Can you pull up the clip 100055? Hold on just a moment. 1055. See if you can find that one. Sorry. I think it might be under the impeachment documents. Nope. Okay. All right, we'll get the safe one up to refresh your memory about that residue. You don't remember touching some residue and filming it and asking the safe breaker if that was unusual to find residue in a safe?
I don't recall that. I would have to refer back to the video that I made of that for just this purpose.
Okay, no worries. So my understanding is you were at the house. There were some times before you got access to the house while Ms. Richins was still living there that you would sit outside her house and observe the house while she was in it. Is that fair?
It is not fair. That is false.
You never did that?
I never sat outside her house and watched her. False.
Not on March 9th of 2023?
Correct.
Not on April 12th of 2023?
Correct.
But you did put trackers on their cars, is that right?
I did.
And that's a secret device that you put on someone's car so you can follow where they're going without their knowledge?
So GPS tracking devices are generally covert, and there's good reason for that. I put GPS devices on Kouri's vehicle and two of Lisa's vehicles, one of which was being used by Kouri's brother, Ronnie.
So her mother's cars and her car.
That is correct.
And how long did you track these individuals?
I think there were different times for different vehicles. I don't recall the exact amount of time, but that'll be in the file that you have.
And did you turn over your reports on every single place they went for months to law enforcement?
Yes.
And you know that law enforcement is required to have a warrant to do that.
Well, they have to get a warrant, and I have to go through a different procedure that is prescribed by Utah law to appropriately place those devices.
Did you track anybody else's car in this case?
I want to say yes. Yes, I did.
Who else's?
There were some vehicles that I suspected that Carmen Lauber may be utilizing, but I discovered that, in fact, the vehicle that was parked at her house overnight on many occasions was being driven by someone else.
So you never gave that report to law enforcement?
I believe I did.
You gave the Carmen Lauber tracking report to law enforcement?
Yes, it wouldn't be named Carmen Lauber, though.
What would it be named?
Oh. I want to say there were a number of people that were associated with her residence.
That's all right. If it's
There was
someone that,
Nick Bonsavage. There was another young man who were frequenting that residence, and I believe that vehicle that I tracked from that residence was seen there overnight on multiple occasions.
okay.
I really don't remember, because the point of that was to track Carmen Lauber. And when I discovered that it wasn't Carmen driving the car, I removed the device.
Okay. Law enforcement was also providing you, I believe you said that Mr. Bloodworth asked you if you got information from law enforcement, and you said no. Is that right?
No, that is not right.
Okay, please correct me.
Well, I would have discussions with law enforcement. I could garner an understanding. I could read between the lines, if you want.
In fact,
say it
you
that way.
went to meetings with law enforcement about this case, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
How many times did you have meetings with them?
I don't recall. I don't count them.
Okay.
The number is not relevant to me.
Well, you appreciate it might be relevant to me? Can you try to remember?
Half a dozen?
Okay. Can you pull up TG 11 for the witness only? Can you make it bigger? All right, sir, do you recognize that? Oh, can you see it?
I can see it.
Do you recognize it?
I do.
All right, and is that an email that you sent to Detective Woody on July 13th of 2022?
I'm going to have difficulty talking about this exhibit because if it becomes an exhibit, it contains a confidential client communication. But I did send it to Detective Woody.
Okay.
Your Honor, I would object to Mr. Gabler being required to testify regarding any claim.
With respect, I'm not sure you have standing to make any objections, and he seems fully attuned to the issue. Ms. Nestor, I'm not sure where we're headed, so just take it one question at a time.
I shall. Thank you, Your Honor. Is it fair to say that this is an example of you suggesting to Detective Woody that now would be a really good time for law enforcement to interview Carmen Lauber?
Yes.
And why would that be, sir?
She's on the ropes in drug court is what it says.
Right.
She was on the ropes.
And in fact, what you argued was she would be very likely to be compliant at this point with law enforcement. Is that your words?
Yes.
All right. Also in here, you accuse Kouri of lying about the name of her house cleaner.
Yes.
And the lie that you said Kouri told was that her house cleaner was her cute cleaner, Norma.
Yes.
In fact, didn't you, sir, finally confirm that Norma Garcia was her house cleaner?
I did later confirm that. Yes.
So when you sent this to police and said Kouri was lying, you were wrong.
I was wrong.
Okay.
But prior to Norma,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Gaber, you need to pause for the next question, sir. Thank you.
very good.
Did law enforcement give you access to I'm going to try to use the right word, to folders where you could access their information on like a subfolder where you had a link to their folder?
No.
Did you provide them with links to your folder?
Yes.
And one of the links you provided them involved a download of Eric's phone. Is that right?
No.
Okay. Did it involve the decoded call logs that you talked about earlier where you figured out everybody's number and name?
I'm confused. You're talking about two separate things. You were just talking about Eric's phone.
You said no, right?
I had an identical copy of Eric's phone that I created from the backup on his Apple iCloud. I may have turned that over to them, but they already had Eric's phone. I didn't need to give them what I had done, which was to trick the Apple server into repopulating a blank iPhone so that I could then forensically examine that iPhone and come up with context from Eric's phone. So I may have given them that information that I created from a clone of Eric's phone.
So you had in your possession a clone or an exact copy of Eric Richins' phone?
It would not be an exact copy. Only the items that were unencrypted or decryptable from the Apple backup would be on the cloned phone. For example, encrypted data would not be present for biometrics, for his Apple Watch. If he was wearing a biometric watch, that is all encrypted. That would not come back to a new cloned phone. But all of the text messaging, the web histories, the call histories, all of that stuff will be present on that clone.
So you had access to all his texts?
I don't believe I did.
Why not? And this is maybe a stupid old lady question, but explain to me why you didn't have access to his texts if you downloaded everything off the cloud.
You said all of his texts.
Okay.
I don't believe I ever got all of his texts.
How far back did they go?
I don't recall the date at this time. I would have to refer to the file material to know the exact date of the first event on the phone.
So how much time did you spend reading through his texts?
Well, I don't recall exactly. I could refer back to some records to come up with an answer for you. It would have been a number of hours.
Hundreds of hours?
No.
Okay.
I mean, in this case,
Right.
936.3 hours.
Is how many hours you billed total for the case?
Yep.
And what were you paid for that?
I don't know.
How much do you charge an hour?
$125 an hour. However, that is not the only billing rate in this case. When I used computer forensic software and my expertise in that regard, the rate would be higher. $200 an hour, I think, was the discounted rate that I gave them.
So I'm really bad at math. Please
Me
forgive
too.
me if I get this wrong.
Yeah, well, we're both in the same place.
We're talking about over $100,000 you made on this case.
I would say so, yes.
Okay. Now I want to go back to that phone and you reading his text.
Yes.
As you were culling through your hypotheses,
Yeah.
obviously one of the things you want to look at is the state of their marriage. Is that fair?
I mean, it's significant, but it's not dispositive.
I
It doesn't-
agree.
It's important context, but it's not evidence of anything, really. I see a lot of bad marriages out there. In my career, I've handled many hundreds of divorce cases. So, people have problems.
Did you review text messages between Eric and some of his friends?
Yes.
Did you review text messages between Eric and Bryce?
Bryce Knudsen?
Yes.
I don't recall specifically, but if they were there, I probably looked at them.
Okay. Your Honor, can I have just a moment?
This was sitting here.
When you reviewed Eric's texts, did you find evidence of him sexting with people other than Kouri?
I don't recall that. I did investigate allegations of an affair with Eric.
Okay, but that's not my question. My question is, do you recall seeing sexting, as the kids say, on Eric's phone with
Yeah.
people other than Kouri?
I don't really know what you mean by sexting. I don't know what the parameters of that are. And so my answer is no.
Okay. Did you find any texts where Eric talked about having an open marriage with Kouri?
I don't recall that.
At some point, were you investigating cases that were being prosecuted in the Summit County area around the time that Eric died, where people were caught distributing fentanyl?
Yes.
Did you gather affidavits from cases where fentanyl was being sold in the Summit County area?
Yes.
And did you ever follow up on any of those investigations, or did you just stop by gathering the affidavits?
Well, they were plugged into the hypothesis testing matrix. I considered them for their proximity being in Summit County and for them involving fentanyl. In each of those cases, I found no relationship to this case.
Okay. I want to pull up TG2, Katie, just for this witness only. Sorry, I lied about the time. I'm going a little bit longer, Your Honor. I'm close to done.
No problem.
Sir, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that what you were talking about with Mr. Bloodworth, which is the decoding where you looked at his call records and tried to figure out who he was calling?
It is the record that I referred to when I was talking about it on direct. I agree with that.
And Katie, could we go to the page for the date 2/14/2022 at 12:23 p.m.? It's a ways down. Just a moment, Your Honor.
Of course.
All right, sir, we've blown up a section. Does that refresh your memory about what you determined a call that was made on December 14th at,
Give me the date one more time.
I'm sorry, February 14th, thank you, Your Honor, at 12:25 p.m.?
Well, this is not a record that I created, but I recognize the format, and it appears to be that Eric Richins' phone had an incoming call at 12:25.
Can you look at the call right above that one?
This is an outgoing call from Eric Richins' phone on March the 9th of 2022. I'm sorry, February the 14th of 2022 at 12:23, 2 minutes before the first record that we talked about, and that is to a different number, 801-473-5058.
So as part of your investigation that you were doing on the mirror phone, you could at least identify a call that was made by Eric at 12:23 p.m. on February 14th, right?
I'm confused. We're looking at an invoice record from a carrier, and you're
Right.
asking me about his phone. Those are two different things.
Did this invoice come from his phone
No,
billing records?
from his carrier, from Verizon.
Right,
That's not a record from his phone. That's a record from his carrier.
I understand.
Two different things.
So according to the bill from his carrier,
Yeah,
he made a call at 12:23 PM on February 14th.
correct.
Okay.
Objection, there's a 901 problem here.
I'm done with it, Your Honor.
Hold on, you got to approach for a moment if you would.
There's- Did you ever make any calls or any trips to Mexico as part of your investigation in this case?
No.
You mentioned you interviewed 45 to 50 people, somewhere around there, 40 to 50.
Yeah, it's an approximate number. I have no method of calculating that number. It's approximate, based upon my memory.
Did you ever interview Kouri?
I did. I spoke to Kouri. She called me on January the 19th of 2023.
All right. And she voluntarily spoke to you
She called me.
and talked to you voluntarily?
She did, and I stopped her. I told her it would be inappropriate and unethical for me to continue the conversation outside the presence of her lawyer. I then texted her lawyer and had a phone call with her lawyer about the propriety of her client speaking without her presence.
Okay.
I then
So you-
requested that Kouri submit to an interview multiple times.
All right, stop.
Okay?
Don't reveal what anyone else said to you.
Okay.
The point is, Kouri called you to talk to you and tell you her side, right?
I don't know what her intentions were. She seemed very angry that I had contacted one of her business associates. I believe that was the reason she called me on that date.
Okay. And so you never, to this day, have sat down with Kouri and heard her version of what happened?
No, despite my repeated requests.
Okay. But she called you.
And I was bound by the ethics not to talk to her outside the presence of her lawyer. She was a litigant. She sued my client.
Okay. And ultimately, as you were working with the trust, did you become aware that the trust filed a wrongful death suit against Kouri?
I am.
And are you aware they're seeking over $10 million in damages against Kouri Richins?
I didn't know that. It's irrelevant to me.
Okay. Okay, court's indulgence for just a moment, Your Honor.
Of course.
whether you recalled seeing any texts with Eric about him and Kouri having an open relationship, and you said you could not recall. Is that right?
Correct.
Can you put that up on the screen, Katie? Do you recall looking at that text?
I do.
You've seen this one?
I believe I have. It's a joke.
It's a joke.
It is. It appears to me to be a joke.
Did you see the text around this text?
I did.
So you have reviewed the text between Eric and Bryce.
I don't know. I don't know that this is a text from Bryce. I have no idea. This does not identify Bryce.
So
Doesn't
now that
identify anybody.
now that you have your memory refreshed, do you remember seeing this text between Eric and another individual saying that Kouri and I are starting an open relationship tonight? Right?
It says, Kouri and I are starting an open relationship tonight, so I told her I'm taking you home.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you left that out of your report.
No. This would be part of my report.
Did you see sexting between Bryce and Eric when you looked at their texts?
I don't recall that, no.
Katie?
And is this sexting? I don't know what you mean.
No, I'm not talking about this one. I'm
Okay.
talking about other ones.
All right. I don't recall. I'm talking about many hundreds of thousands of messages in this case. I can't recall them all.
Let's see. Just a moment. Court's indulgence for just a moment. Can I show you this other text right here and see if this refreshes your memory? Do you remember seeing a whole bunch of emails like this or texts like this between Eric and Bryce?
Honestly, no, I don't remember. Like I say, there were hundreds of thousands of messages in this case. I don't remember even 1% of them. As I look at this, I mean, it just makes me laugh. It doesn't appear to be serious.
So how many of these joke sextings did you review that Eric did?
I don't understand this to be sexting. I think you're wrong about that. I resist your characterization. These are two friends joking with each other. That's what I'm reading here.
And they did that all the time,
I don't know.
hundreds of times?
If I had the records, and then I could answer your question, but I don't remember all of these messages. And yeah, this is a joke.
Did you review all of the texts between Bryce and Eric?
I think at one time I would have gone through every single text message that was available to me on Eric's cloned phone. So, do I recall it? Well, I mean, I recall that it was a bit mind-numbing. There was a lot there. Nothing particularly stuck out in my mind or memory about those messages.
Did they repeatedly talk about having sex acts together?
I don't recall.
Did they repeatedly talk about oral sex together?
I don't recall.
Did they talk about anal sex together?
Also don't recall.
But you read them all,
I'm sure that I did.
and it's all joking.
I knowing what I know about Bryce and Eric, yeah, that's how I interpret it.
So you do remember reading things of this nature and you interpreted it all as joking?
No, as I sit here today, I interpret it that way. I would have interpreted it that way back at my original reading of it. That doesn't mean I recall it. It means I have an opinion about what I thought then. That's different.
And what did you think then? They were joking?
No. What I think now is that this was a joke. I do not have a recollection of this at the time that I first read it, but if I had a recollection of that time, I'm sure it would be the same as it is today.
And if there were these tens of 20s of 50s of these types of emails, all of them would be jokes?
Foundation.
Sustained.
That's it. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Mr. Bloodworth, anything further from Mr. Gabler?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. The text, they're a bunch of to-dos locker room talk from August of 2018.
That was my read of it, yes.
There wasn't any serious read that Eric Richins and Bryce Knudsen were engaged in some homosexual affair.
0.
In all of the text messages you reviewed, did you see any evidence of Eric using illicit street drugs?
No, I looked and I could not find.
You mentioned legal requirements for a licensed private investigator to place a GPS tracker on a car. What are those legal requirements?
So the statute governing that was adopted a few years ago. It requires that before placing the device, a licensed private investigator must identify the person or persons that are driving that vehicle and potentially the owner of that vehicle, and that they submit a request to query the protected persons database in the state of Utah for any record of those persons that are subject to the GPS tracking. That is designed to keep us from tracking people who have protective orders or temporary restraining orders or other lawful processes that define them as a protected person. We cannot track you in that circumstance. We do not have independent access to that database. So we must ask an agency of the state for a yay or nay. Is this person in the protected persons database? We have to do that before we place a device. We have to be certain that we are not tracking a protected person. So I submitted those requests to the appropriate counties of the jurisdictions where I placed these devices. The Summit County Sheriff's Office initially declined my request under the statute. I insisted. I finally got them to comply. I did the same with the Wasatch County Sheriff's Office, and they complied with my request.
Did you conduct your investigation entirely within the bounds of the law?
I believe I did.
Did you conduct your investigation entirely within the ethical bounds of private investigators and the attorneys you were working for in this case?
I believe that I did.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Nestor, anything further for Mr. Gabler?
No, Your Honor.
May we release this witness?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time. Please step safely. You are free to go, sir.
Thank you.